Okay, so the question is that your heart rate has been decoupling more the last few weeks and everything else is the same, and what could this mean? So, honestly, it could mean any number of things from concerning to completely ignore. First question would be, what do the workouts look like that you're doing? Your heart rate is going to respond differently to different types of intensity, and so that's going to change the rate of decoupling. Now, you said everything else is the same, so I'm going to assume they're the same type of workouts, but that would be my first question. I will say I generally don't put a lot of stock into this metric. It's just far too simple a snapshot to really get a lot of meaningful information out of it. You know, along the same lines, I put very little stock into using heart rate as a descriptor of workout intensity or quality. I've talked about the importance of heart rate data. We get a lot of insight from it, but not in this kind of simple snapshot kind of way. And so I'll go out on a limb here and say, just to expand on this a little bit, I don't even think threshold heart rate exists in the way that we typically think of it. I think it's reasonable to assess and look at, an average heart rate over a 60 to 90-minute race as, a threshold heart rate, so to speak. But I've talked before about the VO2 slow component and how if you ride over threshold for any extended time, your breathing and your heart rate are going to be on this steady incline until you reach VO2 max, meaning that there isn't this like settling or a steady number that will stay static that we can use as a descriptor in this way. And I've also talked about time to exhaustion, and the same thing will happen. So if you ride at threshold for long enough, your heart rate isn't just going to stay steady forever. Once you've reached that time to exhaustion point, your heart rate is now going to be decoupling. So that's my point when I say I don't think threshold heart rate exists in the way that we kind of typically use it. So all of that to say, with these caveats around heart rate, you can see why a snapshot like this decoupling number it's not going to be. It's just too simple to get really useful info. Now, sure, if you want to watch decoupling over time, watch those trends and use that as kind of a way to capture aerobic conditioning, sure, you might be able to get some information from that. But comparing these more like minute trends, I think it just isn't going to tell us very much. Now, decoupling is often very highly correlated with dehydration. You say everything's the same, so I'm going to assume that's not the case. You're drinking plenty. It's also very correlated with heat. We're getting warmer temperatures, but again, you said everything's the same, so I'm going to assume everything is the same. But these are the things that I would be kind of considering as possible reasons why you might be getting more decoupling. Now, look, increased decoupling can also be associated with some underlying cardiovascular issues, potentially arrhythmias, heart valve disorders, heart failure. So I'm not telling you to ignore this. It can also be related to dysfunction with your autonomic nervous system, even medications or stress, things like that. So I'm not trying to be dismissive, but I guess I'm suggesting when you say everything else is the same, I'd like to know how truly, truly everything else is the same. And if it truly is the same, then this is probably something that you want to see a doctor about to see if there is, a larger issue underlying that needs to be checked out. So hopefully that I'm not trying to be like WebMD and scare you either. I'm just trying to give you a picture of the potential explanations. And when I say it could be nothing to it could be concerning, that's the spectrum that we're talking about.